I suppose there's all sorts of things that hasn't happened, but one of the things I think which has been positive for me has been the discussion around adoption. With the government's focus to change adoption legislation to remove the requirement to take into account race, religion, language and culture, what I've been encouraged by is conversations that I've had at meetings with voluntary organisations, with researchers and academics, where in the main everybody is saying that they don't want the legislation to change, that they actually think the issue around race, religion, language and culture are important aspects of a child's life and should be included in any consideration around the placement needs of children. So regardless of what's happening in relation to the government's position, I think in terms of practitioner, academics, organisations, that it sounds like that issues around race has moved on and people are actually willing to accept that actually those are important factors in a child's life. So in that sense, I think the years of work with people, I think is paying off. If I stick to the adoption issue, then I guess my hope would be that the government would listen to all the voices that are saying it shouldn't be changed, the whole issue around race, religion, language and culture. The law shouldn't change in relation to that, and that what they do is they leave the legislation as it is, but focus on issues such as recruitment, something that we are pushing for, that their focus should be on recruitment of black and minority ethnic permanent carers, which means adoption as well as long-term fostering. And my hope is that in the new year, that's what's going to happen, that the government will decide that the legislation will not change, and that they will realise that actually the focus has to shift and the focus has to be around recruitment of families, so we're able to place the children who are waiting too long to be placed in adoptive families. There are other ways to achieve permanency for children. We know also with long-term fostering that a lot of black families actually prefer to long-term foster children, partly because they don't want that severance, the legal severance from birth families. They want to care for the child for life, but they feel that long-term fostering is better. And of course there is special guardianship orders now which are being used more and more. So I do think whilst adoption needs to continue, that then we need to look at other permanent options like long-term fostering and SGOs. You know, the discouraging bit that, you know, it's come a full circle and we're again discussing issues to do with the placement needs of black minority ethnic children, where we thought the arguments about why they should be placed in families that match their ethnicity in the main, that it's now come back again on the agenda. So in some senses that's slightly discouraging that has happened. You know, one does wonder about the agendas around about why this should come back, particularly, I mean, particularly in relation to the change in legislation. I guess my view would be that given that all is required at the minute is to give due consideration to matters such as race, religion, language and culture, that already it means that it isn't of paramount consideration. To suddenly even want to change that and dilute it even further is a really, really bad idea.